Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Craig and Paul from Penn, Ohio Research, you have finally found your way into the darkness of the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy on LordeStarfox Radio. This is going to be epic as always, yet I have been sleeping for so long and really do need to feed. Absolutely delicious. I do enjoy replenishing lost power sources. Now, without further ado, Craig and Paul have released my shackles, and it is once again time to take a walk into the madness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, once again, you are tuning in to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. We have two very special hosts and guests tonight that consistently work with each other because, yes, they are a research squad. We have Penn, Ohio Cryptid Research, consisting of Craig and Paul, who have already sat down in the Fox Den and set up the late night fire as we again burn the timber into the early hours of the morning. And Craig, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ken?
Very glad to finally sit down and hang out with you. It's good to hear you're doing pretty well, too. What about you, Paul? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Just get itchy to get out in the field. So.
Yes, this is excellent. It is starting to get a little bit nice up here in the Northeast. I'm up in Maine, right? So we have some pretty intriguing weather. As of the last couple of weeks, it's been getting, up there in temperatures, which is good. How about y'all?
Yeah, a little bit of snow yesterday, but, western Pennsylvania, right on the Ohio border. So one day snow, the next day it's 70 degrees.
We're like an hour from Lake Erie, so, we get lake effect weather sometimes and that too.
Yeah.
I can imagine. That's excellent. You are right in the area that I have dubbed Werewolf Square, actually off a spin from one of my good friends, Aaron Deese, who has the Dogman Triangle. There is a difference between Dogman and Werewolves, yet Werewolf Square sounded cooler than Dogman Square. It's in a location right where you are, between Ohio and some of Pennsylvania. We have the land between the lakes, Tennessee, Kentucky. We also have Michigan. We have Wisconsin. It's all slapped right in there in that little square where there is a ton of encounters and stuff. So it's pretty interesting for sure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We just recently started getting Dogman reports, too, so far. That we've been told about. So we never gave it a whole lot of thought for this area. I always thought Michigan and then I heard about these two sightings and so we have a couple things that happened to us that we may be able to attribute to Dogman and not a Sasquatch like we originally thought. But because they didn't match up with any known Bigfoot behavior.
Whew, that is some pretty epic stuff, but I will per se nightmare fuel as well, because that's one of my go-to hooks right there. And before we start diving into some of this epic stuff, would you both like to introduce yourself to the audience, explain how you started up your research organization, how you got interested into cryptids in general, and then, yeah, let's roll from there, my friends.
Yes, well, my name's Paul Nicklin. I grew up watching In Search Of in the 70s, you know, so in the Bigfoot film and stuff like that. I wasn't born till 67, but the film came out in 67. But my first memory of a drive-in movie was Boggy Creek. So pretty much had me hooked after that. Growing up, I, read everything I could about cryptids and the Loch Ness Monster and, all the big ones that you learn about when you're young. And just kind of turned into, armchair research for a long time because of work and kids and raising family. But one day I was outside and I started talking to my neighbor, and we got to talking and found out that he was into Bigfoot. And so 8 years ago, we decided one night we was going to go out and see what we could find. And that was 8 years ago, and we're still going. So I'll let Craig tell you about himself now. So
Yeah, I'm Craig Findley, and it was the Patterson Gimlin film for me. I was 12 years old when it came out. I was born in 55, and I was convinced right from a young kid that Bigfoot's real, and from then on it was like any opportunity to learn more about it, I was just like a sponge. I couldn't get enough of it, and like Paul said, it was armchair research up until. We're neighbors. We live across the street, and like you said, we was out talking, and the subject came up. There was a show about Bigfoot like the night before, and that's when he asked me if I saw that, and I was like, yeah, I did, and it described it as like 12 foot tall, So we went in. I got a tape measure, and we put up 12 foot and like 4 foot across on the side of my house, and it was like. Man alive, this thing is huge, and that's what's like that started it. We were like, yeah, well, I'm ready to go, let's just do it. And that was the start of Penn, Ohio cryptid research, and that was 8 years ago.
Word got out, and we started getting phone calls and text messages and secondhand stories a lot of times, but a lot of firsthand accounts started coming probably in our second, third year. We started getting people actually would come over and, finally start talking to you. So they got to feel you out for a while. You make sure, people still think Bigfoot's a little nutty yet. So it's getting better, but.
That is some lit stuff by both of you. I do appreciate the work you're putting in there. That's some nice kudos. To be quite honest with you, I have obviously, like every other kid growing up, was intrigued by, I don't know, things like sharks and dinosaurs. And obviously, well, the cryptid section you find in your library, definitely well versed in the whole Sasquatch thing. But personally, I think it's in the right hands now with science. Now they are just trying to figure out the nitty gritty. Is it more primate based, or do we have some Neanderthal based things mixed in too? Behaviorisms, if you look in this area and the descriptions resemble more prehistoric, human behaviors, but then in this area they act more apish. The science is there now. They've got to the point where, you can use the LiDAR. You can tell like the in-depth prints, and you got people that have the fancy letters in front of their names that are able to sit down and figure this out. So nowadays, maybe let's say in the past 5 Definitely, but even probably further back, I have done no research on Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Yet, as I said, I believe it's in the right hands. Now I just try to figure out why I have 551 pages of missing people, strange canine sightings, why we have these howls that can't be verified, these footprints, and there's a lot of intriguing stuff. I just feel as a investigative photojournalist, I only have enough quality power to focus on the topic in front of me to do it correctly. It's pretty much what I do. I'm so deep in the rabbit hole per se. Every time I move around, you uncover something that, well, has a ton of merit into potentially what's occurring and what people are seeing.
Yeah, I did. I got really interested in that missing 411 and, on down that hole like you're in, looking at all this stuff. And I mapped out all the cave systems in the U.S. and I mapped out all the Sasquatch sightings and all the UFO sightings and the missing people, and they all overlap each other. I'm sure you've seen that in your in your digging. So I know where you're at, and I do agree with the Bigfoot thing. I think they know now, and I think it's legit. It's just a matter now of them writing their papers. So I'm there with you on that. And this Dogman thing, though, really kind of intrigues me now after what's happened to us a couple times. So I want to dig into that more. Just started recently digging into that with these tribes that were around here, the Seneca, and how they had, how was that pronounced? Niagwahi? Yeah, something like that.
That's what
they called the Dogman, basically. Meat you couldn't eat, they called it, and said it stunk. But and we got a big burial ground right out where we go to, where we've had action. So
see, we started out looking for Bigfoot, but now we have like 3 or 4 different spots that we consistently go to, and we camera trap. We do daytime investigations. Then we'll stay for the night, and just set up and just make ourselves known and just let whatever happens happen, And we have this one spot that we go to that all this crazy stuff just starts happening. Like it's happened to us 2 times in the 8 years that we've been going here. We're sitting there now. We're like a mile and a half in the woods, and this field just starts lighting up. Well, there's one way in on an old dirt road, and that's it. Our back is water. There's no light sources, and we couldn't hear a car. We couldn't hear a 4-wheeler. We couldn't hear nothing coming. So we get up and we look, and there's no cars coming. And this field just starts dimming down. Then it lights back up. Then it dims back down. Then all of a sudden, you ever see a documentary where like they harvest like pecans, and they have this machine that hooks up to the tree and it just shakes the tree? This one tree just starts shaking like crazy. We thought it was rain. Now this is late at night.
Sounded like rain coming through the woods.
Yeah, it sounded like rain coming through the woods. So we were going to gather up our equipment, and it's never raining, And then all of a sudden we start seeing these shadows moving around us. I mean, there's no wind. And they're going at different angles, no rhyme or reason to where they're coming from. So Paul started snapping pictures, just quick pictures of, and he caught a shadow, and then you can see eyes in this shadow, and then it happened again last year. It was the second time that it happened, and at that time we started smelling this like rotten meat. It was like a putrid smell. And when we first got there, we couldn't smell nothing. The wind wasn't blowing, so I mean, if there was an animal there, we'd have smelled it. And then Paul and another guy that goes with us sometimes, they I moved down. I heard something, so I moved down and I did this aggressive call, and this thing got up and took off running, and we didn't see anything more after that. I mean, then Paul and Mike started seeing the shadow, and I didn't see the shadow, and it was like quiet, and it should have the way it moved, it should have come in towards where I was at, and it didn't. So we have no clue what that was.
That shadow was probably 8-9 foot, hunched over, and had like what looked like, I know this sounds dumb, but you know Sonic the Hedgehog with the jagged fur that comes out the back of him? It was very similar to that down the back of this thing. It was all black. And it ran from one of the back in this little area where we was parked. It ran from behind one of the Jeeps and come booking towards us and ran into a grove of woods and just disappeared. Was gone. Smell was gone. It was gone. It left no tracks, no nothing.
And all our equipment started shutting down.
Yeah.
When this was going on. We put body cams, police body cams on. And they started shutting down. Our FLIR started shutting down. Our digital, everything started shutting down one by one. And then, I mean, we put all new batteries in before we go out. We check all that, and everything's fully charged. And after this settled down, it all started coming back. It was everything coming. And in this spot, this is where in the last year is where we first got any knowledge of like Dogman reports. So we don't know, you know. We don't know what that was.
I don't think it's Sasquatch. So,
and
you think Dogman's more spiritual, more supernatural, or physical?
Wow. That is something very interesting and intriguing stuff right there. Thanks for sharing. I've heard some of those depictions, and that's also something where I have yet to mention this to you, but I have previously spoken about how I think sometimes people might be very optimistic they're walking into a Bigfoot encounter, yet in actuality, they're not. They're walking into something much worse, in my opinion, because just recently, one of my co-hosts, Lee Hampel from Wisconsin, he has a farm right on Bray Road. I mean, this Dogman thing throws sticks at his truck, which we just talked about, things like that, and also has shaken things in other cases, not with Lee, but other people, to get what they said were bats out of a bat tower. It was shaking it, as you had said in the description, seeming as if something was shaking. That right there is very interesting. Geez, we could do a whole episode about your latter question, yet a quick response about that is there is a massive difference between skinwalkers, dogmen, and werewolves. A skinwalker is he or she that walks on all fours. They never once mention a raging werewolf, and actually a lot of people have overlooked they use the coyote much more because the coyote is the trickster, which would mean the coyote person, he or she on all fours, which is that aspect. And then you have werewolves, which is more of a curse, which definitely involves witchcraft to an extent as well, just like over on the skinwalker side, but it's definitely much different on how you become this entity. It's more or less of a curse. And now when you dive into the Dogman, you got things like the cynocephali that were around in 290 BC, which were the dog-headed people that Alexander the Great fought with and against, and also Herodotus documented them. I think that's more the Dogman right there. I don't think there's any shape-shifting per se going on with the Dogman. They are what they are. But now with skinwalkers and werewolves, yeah, they're diving more into the paranormal aspect, witchcraft, which is not per se what I specialize in, which is why I got my science team that dives into different aspects that I don't feel confident in. Yeah, I do feel confident in the answer of breaking it down per se, because I know we look at it as paranormal, physical, or extraterrestrial is how our reports come in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what we've encountered here. Now we have other spots we go to, and we don't have nothing like this. It's just we get wood knocks, we got screams, we've got tree structures we found. We found footprints, Bigfoot footprints. But this one spot we go to, and like Paul said, we know they're within like maybe 3 miles of there was a huge burial ground there. So we have no clue what's up with this. We just don't know. We're not claiming we know either. We don't know.
But after hearing the 2 Dogman reports from out there and the sightings, it just got me thinking, or leaning that way, more towards, something along those lines than a Bigfoot. But there has also been massive UFO reports out of that area. I mean, it's constantly, it's a hot spot for UFO activity. We've captured stuff on our trail cameras that, if you go on our Facebook, you'll see pictures of 2 white balls, 3 pictures of them. And as 3 pictures, they go from 3 white balls to 2 full-grown silhouettes, human-shaped silhouettes. And the camera shut off after that. We had an additional camera pointing to the same direction, and that camera got absolutely nothing. So, and it was no more than 50 feet away from the original camera. Weird lights, stuff like that out there.
And law enforcement has seen the lights light up too. We was out doing an investigation, and a law enforcement stopped, and they were talking with us, and they said they saw the exact same thing. They hate going down there by themselves at night.
They go down in there to patrol. They got every light on their car turned on. I mean, it's something. So it's not just us that's experiencing this stuff down there. So.
Yikes. Again, excellent stuff. Very interesting. Creepy as heck for sure. I do know that one of my really good friends he is in Pennsylvania as well. I don't know if you ever heard of Jamie King. He also is really good friends with my buddy Brian Seach. Yes, Jamie has some of the best, if not the best, Dogman tracks I believe we have on file from the Shenango Valley.
That's where we're at.
We're in the Shenango
Valley.
Yes,
I know who Brian Seach is. Yes. Yeah.
He's the man too, but they're both legendary. I need to be able to work with more people such as yourself. I am, like I said, a journalist, pretty much like the analytics nerd dude. I'm the geeker. I just crunch stuff, right? I write the books, the counters down. I look at the analytics, the data, try to figure out why it's occurring more in these time frames, etc. But then individuals such as yourself are the ones that are providing me with the data to be able to crunch and then get it out to a broader audience. So it's important that, we all work as one.
Well, that's what we do. We're willing to share, because we're all in this together,
Yes.
And we're more than happy to participate with, other investigators, and that's what we are. We are investigators, and we just gather the evidence, and we just put it out there, and you believe it. If not, it's okay. We know what we saw. We know what happened, but we don't know, we just don't know. I mean, we do know there's a whole bunch of strange stuff going on in this one spot.
And you obviously then know about ley lines and
yes.
how heavy the ley lines are that run through the Shenango Valley area. So all the water, the limestone, yeah. So
great how you brought that up. That's actually a topic my geologist William White has covered with me and explained to me, and I started to understand that meaning. For example, like Castle Hauschka or Huschka, over in Ukraine, right? I'm not fully
Yeah.
sure. We'll just say Europe, where that's on a ley line as well. The SS and the Dirty Stash went there specifically because there was supposedly paranormal activity. The bottom line is the way this castle is built is very bizarre, as if it was meant to hold something in, and it's almost supposedly bottomless. There's no way to defend the outside of the castle. There's no food, no kitchen in there, no sleeping quarters. It's legit set up per se with guards on the top. Again, so yeah.
Yep. I just watched a show about that castle.
So yes, but what's crazy though too is just it all ties in what you said with the ley lines. That's pretty great stuff.
Yeah, I think if you look at all the ley lines and all the ancient stuff like that, and you look, the ley lines line up with Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids and all that kind of stuff, and animals use them for migratory reasons, and so I think with heavy concentrations, that's part of the reason why we have the action in this area that we have in the Shenango Valley. So for some, whatever the reason is, it draws it in, draws them in, draws it in, whatever you want to use there. So
creepy stuff right there. Again, that reminds me a lot of the Ozarks. I'm up here in the Northeast, but I just have people from that area. I have done, well, a little bit of debunking myself with my science team, but also some other great minds that don't even work with us that also did a lot of debunking. But then there's some really great researchers that swear, even though the things we presented, they fully sign on and agree with, they still swear up and down that they are seeing something and hearing something else, though. So again, bizarre. They claim there's just some strange feeling there.
Yeah. That's what we get. You can go out some nights and you go out into the woods and you're just there and there is just nothing. It's just like sitting in your own living room, and then the next time you're out there, it's creepy as hell. You feel like something's watching you. That's when action starts happening. We get tree breaks, screams, branches, rocks thrown. So yeah, we've experienced all that kind of stuff in these areas. So the place where we think could be Dogman, we've had a lot of rocks thrown there, 4 different occasions. So
and not only that tree was shaken, we said we camera trapped this like 4 different spots pretty heavy, and we always put a camera on a camera. Well, we were going in to get our cameras to switch them out, and the spot we were going into is where those glowing figures, we caught those glowing figures. But as we're going in, we're just taking our time looking for evidence as we go in, see anything out of the usual, any kind of, like prints, anything. We're looking for it, just taking our time and looking the area over. Well, all of a sudden, on the other side of this marsh, there was all these cattails and bunch of, brush there, but this tree just starts whipping back and forth. And then all of a sudden it snaps. It broke the tree, and then it took off running. It sounded like King Kong running through the woods. We're like, what in the world was this? We couldn't get our phones out fast enough to record it, and that's when we went and got police body cams. And we as soon as we get out of the vehicle, now we have our body cams on. But I mean, this is the kind of stuff. And down at that end, that's on the other end of where we had the other tree that shook, and there was nothing there. Shake, we couldn't see nothing. But down at that end, sometimes when we go down there, it's just like you get this feeling of like dread. You know what I mean? It's just like something ain't right here. And then it just goes away. But all of a sudden, I'm not the only one who feels it, and Paul's not there. The other guy that goes with us once in a while, he felt it too. And it's just something about this spot. It's just creepy. So
wow. Again, nightmare stuff right there, and excellent and acute observations. A lot of people don't realize the vast majority of people that go missing, and I don't ever like to assume things or deal in 100s because, well, that's just not really the way I roll. Assumptions aren't good. Nothing is 100%. Yet, well, this is 100%. People are missing. They're
Right.
missing in national forests and near cave systems. A lot of people don't realize, like I previously stated, we're going to start with Alaska. Okay. During the last census, this is around 4 or 5, maybe give or take, years ago. 738,000 people were listed in Alaska. Okay. Well, in the last 20 years, 60,000 have been reported missing. Keep in mind that doesn't mean that all those people have just vanished from Earth. Some people don't want to be found. People have changed their name. People have, well, yes, just had changes or maybe on the run, etc., which would take a portion of that down. But that's still pretty large. And
Right.
then here in, well, the more understandable part of the United States or more accessible, every year anywhere from 1,100 to 2,400 people go missing and only 5% are ever found. All right. Well, what the Christmas trees? Obviously, something is occurring here involving these people. As a scientific mind, I always try to start with logical first, right? And to be subjective and objective, and I need to play the devil's advocate, meaning even if I might think this is going on, well, if this evidence supports maybe that's not what's going on, I need to look at all of these things, all right?
Yep.
Yet, what's obviously occurring is some people are misfortunate, of course. Some people are being consumed by predators that we know about, of course. Some
Right.
people are falling victim to psychotic individuals that, if people don't believe they're out there roaming, just like the rest of us like to enjoy nature, look at some of the documentaries of some of the psychotic serial unalivers
Right.
that are around the forest. They're
Right.
involved too, yes. Feral people, sure, you can say a little bit because there are large, not people think when we say feral that it has to be something from like the hills have eyes or wrong turn. No,
Right.
feral just means you're living off the grid. All right. And I know people personally that have come across large communities that were off grid that had firearms and things that weren't very happy about them coming around.
Right.
They're involved to an extent, sure. But then after all that's removed, you still have some other things that are going on that don't line up with all of that, you know? And that's what the heck's happening, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Throw out 90% of it to stuff like that. You still got 6,000-7,000 people going missing
Mm-hmm.
that you have no explanation for. So
And what was the common denominator in 411, the movie? They were all alone. When
Mm-hmm.
so we don't
we don't separate.
we don't separate when we go out. We're within 25, 30 feet of each other when we're going through the woods, and we're both armed too. We never go out for the simple fact that you don't know what kind of crazy person's out there.
Yep.
You don't know if you're going to run. We have bears here. We have
Yeah.
coyotes here. There's been reported cougar sightings here. So we're armed.
But yeah,
I'd rather have my gun and not need it than to need my gun and not have it. That's my motto. I don't want to shoot Bigfoot. I don't want to shoot none of them, but I'm more concerned about the other stuff,
Yes. Preach, my friend, both of you. Actually, my favorite survivalist, Cody Lundeen, really hits it on the head in general, saying just in any situation, you need to prepare for a disaster, especially when you're going out into the wilderness. But then also, right, who knows? Maybe it, might be something very easy. So you hope for the best, but you need to, hey, if we're going out there for the weekend, well, we need to have enough for maybe a week or so at least, right? Just in case something terrible happens.
Yep.
Yet, who knows? Maybe it's a perfect weekend. Maybe we don't even drink all the water we need or food because we didn't have any of those issues. Yet, you want to make sure you're definitely always prepared for that because, as you said, you never know what's going on out there. The references you made, too, about being alone, well, of course, with anything that is opportunistic, they are going to take on something that is, well, again, the path of least resistance, and especially isolated. Even being as close as both of you had said, wow, we covered a case in Georgia where these people were working the power lines, and they were around 25, 35 yards behind each other, three of them. They had finished up for the day. They're heading back. Well, when they turn around to check on the third guy, because they keep turning around to check on each other, he's gone. No idea where they are. They run back, and they see the things that were in his pockets, like some coins and things on the ground, seeming as if something had tipped them upside down real quick. And as they're looking around, there's a barbed wire fence off connecting to this like swampy type area where a piece of his working vest and his boot was found. Fast forward, the farmer that owned all that property was just checking his whole property line, doing maintenance, ended up finding the other boot in the swamp. That's what I mean, though. So realistically, something could take, let's say all three of us are out there, okay, say I'm in the front, Craig, you're behind me, and then Paul's behind you, right? We're just kind of, as you said, 25, 35 yards away. We're just doing our own thing. We talk for a bit, but then you can only talk for so long, right? So what happens when we turn around, right? Or actually, let's say me, right? Let's say we're all done. I don't even turn around yet, right? Craig turns around to check on Paul. Paul's already gone, but then before Craig says anything, something snatches him. I'm oblivious. This has now just happened within a couple seconds more, maybe 10 minutes, not even. And I turn around, both of you are gone. That is something that realistically could occur because, again, unless you're side by side, so definitely make sure to, be smart. Not yourself, anyone out there,
Yeah, it's a scary thought. It's a very scary thought. Yeah. So.
See, and that's one thing too. Like the one guy that started going with us too. Like we told him, we said, well, we got one rule. We're not bringing you home. If you get scared, you have to stay. You have to go sit in the truck or something. Because you just never know. I mean, it's like fishing. You don't catch something all the time. But when it happens so it's so unexpected too. It just happens so quick that you're like, wow, Yeah. I mean, and just a little background on, like I told you, Paul and me are neighbors. We get a alert, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorms. Half the time I beat Paul out on the front porch, or half the time he beats me out. Everybody else is going to the basement. We're going out sitting on the porch watching for the tornado, It's just like we're both adrenaline junkies, so
Yeah, no, I definitely can see how that would get you revved up and fired up for sure, per se. Yet, no, it is just super creepy out there, meaning about how, I'm going to give another example. If people don't know, look it up in history. All right, the ninjas didn't have really much for armor or such, straight up stealth. And they actually used a ton of females, too. A lot of people don't realize this, that they all got the stereotype in the past with, the sexism about how women, were only sitting back and doing food and such. But the Apaches, the women were just as badass as the men. Same thing in like Sparta, the women fought as well. A lot of, ancient human beings, they have found women buried with weaponry as well. And I know the Viking culture, women were badass. Again, now, these ninjas, right? They would sneak up on people, legit smoke a whole entire room full of individuals. This is just a human now. Anyone out there really doesn't think that somebody with a skill set of someone that is as lethal per se as a special forces or a ninja couldn't easily take out all three of us in a very quick mannerism without us even per se knowing, then they don't understand history, because it's already been done numerous times. All right. Yes. If that's just a person now, imagine the capabilities of an apex predator, because last time I checked, humans, yes, with the weapons and training like that, we're still not an apex predator. Okay. Yes, that ninja could smoke us, but could that ninja really just smoke a huge grizzly bear? I don't think so. Probably not. Right.
Right. I get what you're saying. Yep. I never looked at it that way. So I appreciate that train of thought. So this way, yeah, it's a good
No,
way.
I just try to, like I said, understand and just make references that actually apply to realism.
Yeah.
Meaning, yeah, if an elite soldier that is just a human like us can do something so drastic as that, well, now think of just a
It ain't fun.
predator in general,
Yeah.
or even a cryptid. Now, yes, the difference in equations, are,
Well, look
Yeah.
at Rambo. Remember Rambo when he was in the woods and they were out trying to get him. He messed them people up.
Yes, I mean that's a great example too, meaning people that understand the land and stuff. And I mean, as we are tying this up, look at like a lot of the things that occurred during, per se, in Vietnam and stuff, with people understanding the land frames better than we did. I mean, we might have had better military, per se, more weapons and things. At the end of the day, though, we didn't understand the terrain. So even though they didn't have, per se, the upfront slam bam type weaponry, it didn't matter though, because they understood the land so much better. So you just made a great example too. Anything that understands their environment is going to be at an advantage, even per se if they're outnumbered, because you and I and 20 of us could be out there trying to track down
You're
a
in their house.
person. Yeah,
You're in their house.
and it's not going to get it right. Exactly.
Yep. They know where everything is. So how to use it. Yeah.
Boom. Well, what the heck, great stuff. As we are starting to come to home base here, I do know both of you are pretty busy individuals. Is there anything else you would like to touch base on tonight before we do let you both get back to things you need to attend to?
I just got one question. What in your study and research of Dogman, is there any way to defend yourself if it come down to it? What would you have to do? Where are they? Are they flesh and blood, spiritual? What would a bullet stop them? Or
Great question right there to tie this up. Yes, to assure people out there, when we are talking about the Dogman, like I had mentioned with Alexander the Great, if you look at other historical aspects where it's not paranormal based, I mean, Alexander the Great said that he enjoyed much more when the Cynocephali were on his side instead of against him. He claimed they were hellacious warriors, pretty much really brutal to take down in battle, but they could be taken down. I mean, they're using swords and for the majority aspects back then. And I also have a case of a farmer that was attacked. I don't think he had made this purposely into a spear, but as this thing was running at him, he picked up a large piece of wood that this thing impaled itself on, and apparently he had unalived it. This is a really old case. Also, we have a lot of people that have claimed that they shot at it, it spit up blood, it spun around, and then like ran off. So yeah, in those instances right there, yes, I don't think though people should be using lower caliber weapons, meaning the average deer hunter is going out to, I don't know anything about hunting, this is what I've been explained to, okay? But when you go out and you're hunting a deer or a smaller animal, you don't really have the best caliber weapon. Could you drop this huge Kodiak bear that might jump you? Sure, if you somehow get lucky with the money shot. But then I've seen other times where people are unloading on this bear. It doesn't even seem to care coming at you. It's just a bear. I mean, don't get me wrong. No, it's just a bear, he says. Bears are crazy. But I'm per saying now, if we're dealing with, say, a Sasquatch or a Dogman, you should be out there with something, I would say, that has some sort of military specs. My friends Jessica Jones and Drewski from Cryptid Warfare, they got semi-auto and automatic weaponry. They also have
semi-auto 45. So.
Yes, something that is I don't like to swear, but
357 mag.
Yeah, pisses out ammo, man, quick. Okay, and it's meant to do damage, whereas your rifle, right? The odds of you got to reload and stuff, and I don't know, it just doesn't work too well. But yes, they go out with that, and Drewski, just because he's former SWAT and stuff, has some grenades he goes out with because he claims no matter what, if anything's taking him out, they're going with him. So I'm not saying you need to go to that extent, but yeah, you want something that is going to put out a lot of ammo. All right. I mean, this is horrible, but a quick example, poachers per se with elephants, their weapon of choice is an AK-47. That's not even that good of a weapon, but look at how much firepower it puts out. Yeah, and it's dropping an elephant. Elephants are huge, man.
Yeah.
Well, our sons, they won't go with. Paul's son went with us one time, and my son, he put together, you know, like he helps us out with the putting the recordings and stuff sometimes, and he heard some of the screams and stuff. And I have an AK and an AR, and he said at first he said I'll go if I can take one of those.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I said, you could take one. You could take the other 45 I have, and I'll just take the 357. He said, nope, I ain't doing it. Now he won't even go at all. He won't.
That's so funny. Yeah, just aim for, like I said, obviously, you know, we can't go too elaborate, but we all know what, you know, shuts down somebody's mainframe real quick, all right? That is always the way to go. But then also think of mobility aspects too. I mean, if you go for per se like the hip and pelvis and things, that drops stuff immediately as well. You don't need any sort of silver bullets and things for Dogman. That would be again something like skinwalkers or werewolves, which personally I don't know enough about that, but I still have my questions, and I don't even fully subscribe to werewolves. I find it interesting, yet I can't bring up enough science on it yet to really sit back and give my stamp of approval. Skinwalkers has a lot more to go on it, you know, with the lore and things, but same thing. You don't need silver bullets to unalive one of them as well. That is just a modern day twist, but also from what I understand, silver, iron, and things are just minerals that have supposedly special kind of powers to them anyhow when it comes to paranormal. So if you always notice, silver is always tied in with everything.
Iron.
Yeah. Yes. I don't even think necessarily it has anything to do with per se werewolves as well. It's just something that Hollywood has spun on it, you know?
Right. Right.
I just have one more question for you too. Do you think, like with a because I kind of believe what I'm going to say. You believe if you don't go in there like every time I go out into the woods, I'm hoping like you ever buy a lottery ticket, you scratch it. It's like you want to see the $50,000, you know. So you can't go out like being a skeptic, you know. Do you think they can? Do you think they have the ability to like communicate with you like somehow or another? That's what I'm trying to say. You know, do you think they can? I mean, there's got to be something to these things because I mean, everybody would know about them if it wasn't. You know,
Mm-hmm.
They got to have some type of power that we don't know. You know, do you think they could like sense that? You know, like because we go, where we go. You know, I mean, we've been going there for 8 years, and they presented themselves. This stuff has happened to us twice. So I'm kind of thinking they're like, oh, there's those two rednecks back again. You know, we'll go mess with them or something. I don't know. You know, what do you think?
Again, that's a very excellent question. Do you know from some of the reports, people have claimed per se that they are getting some sort of mind speaking things? I again think there is a lot going on. I think the term of Dogman and werewolves is really mixed up per se. Personally, I think the term Dogman, there's a lot going on there. I mean, there's giant baboons that used to exist, also baboons in general that are running around that look like crazy, terrifying werewolves. There's hyenas as well that were ancient that we still don't believe went extinct, plus modern day hyenas. You got the short-faced cave bear. Those are definitely all coming into play. Like I always try to tell a lot of people too, is I never think a person necessarily isn't seeing something unless given reasons for that, meaning if I find out otherwise. The question is, what is it fully that they were seeing? Meaning, there are a lot of times where people swear up and down that they'll see something, and Monster Quest used to be excellent at it, where they would break it down and actually there was supposedly a Sasquatch sitting around a bird feeder, but no, it was crows coming down.
Yeah. That one.
Yes, and that's what I mean about, we're not saying that woman didn't see that, but the question is, what did you really see? As you break it down, then you're like, okay. So it's not saying that she's hoaxing or was trying to, per se, make that up, because she honestly thought that's what she had witnessed. And it's no different than other times with black bears and such. I mean, they have been seen walking around. There was a black bear, you probably should both have heard about this. It was down in your area in Pennsylvania and Ohio, where it was walking around standing upright, ended up getting shot by a hunter up in Pennsylvania, but it was a legit black bear just walking around on its hind legs, and it would fall into the description of like, what the heck, that looks like some crazy werewolf thing walking around. I think that is going into play as well. Also, it's like with the black cats, again, Monster Quest, people would swear up and down they're seeing gigantic cats. Right. But then when you look at how it's broken down, it's just a house cat. Yes, you did see a jet black house cat that might have been a little bit larger than the average house cat, but it wasn't this huge panther that you saw, you know?
Yeah. I remember there was a bear in New Jersey just not too long ago that had an injured paw, and for years it walked around on its hind legs. People watch it walk around through their backyards. It just stayed on its hind legs,
Right? It just shows you the adaptation aspect. And same thing per se with baboons. You know, there was a baboon that lived around these people for so long that it started walking upright like them, because no different than how when your dog thinks it's a person too. Well, this baboon has the capability and just started walking upright. And that shows you, evolution right there. But again, now imagine seeing a 5 to 6 foot tall baboon just walking around. That'd be pretty creepy, huh?
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
The reason I asked too about that was you said somebody from like up on Bray Road.
Yes.
Remember there were several. I've seen several different versions of documentary about Bray Road, and the one guy was saying that he felt like when he seen it, that it was communicating with him. And do you remember that?
Yes, that was one of the ones.
That's another reason why I'm asking you about the Dogman. Do you think they have that capability of communicating with you when you're out there like this?
Again, super interesting. Even per se, if the cynocephali were physical like that. When I look back, though, I don't really see anything solidifying in history that they had per se some sort of special power like that. I do know that over in India, they spoke about them coming down to trade with them from the mountains. Same thing in the Middle East. So they were walking down from the mountains to come trade, meaning, I don't know, if they had some sort of special power, I would think you would maybe just teleport or something, correct, right? Instead of walking all down through the mountains. What you're saying now, I think, is another layer as to what's going on, meaning maybe something is taking the form of that, or maybe something looks similar to that, but actually isn't necessarily fully the Dogman, which then could involve with the whole mind speak and such, because I do know that the people I've spoken to on Bray Road and stuff definitely feel that there could be a paranormal aspect to their encounters.
Okay.
But then also in other areas, though, when I speak to people and stuff, they don't describe anything paranormal. They just describe that it legit was trying to rip off their front door, or one family had their German Shepherd thrown through the window with a large chain around its neck and such. Okay. And they didn't really ever describe any sort of mind speak and such, but then like you had said, yes, in other encounters there is, which would tell me there's more layers going to this than we do. And I guess a best comparison I could make is look at, I'm a hockey guy, I'm a Bruins guy, and I saw one of y'all rocking a Penguins hat. So I could leave you kudos on that, but the Bruins are awful. But either way, basically what I'm trying to say is, all right, so in hockey, you are in the NHL, which means you got to be pretty good just to be there. But everyone's got different little attributes, right? Meaning, okay, Sidney Crosby or David Pastrnak, right? Or Austin Matthews or Jeremy Swayman. They have something that makes them a little bit different than the average NHL player. So maybe that's what's going on too. Maybe some of these just have something that's a little bit more spiced up about them than the other one does.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because we're just trying to educate ourselves, you know, because just within the last year is when we've heard that there's been a couple sightings out here. So we're just trying to piece things together, you know, like.
Heck yeah. That's the way to do it, man.
Yeah. Appreciate you letting us pick your brain.
Yeah.
Of course. That's what friends are for, and teammates. Also, if you do want some more information when you're bored, check out my playlist. Specifically, if you go down to the science team section, you can listen to all our scientists talk about their thoughts on things, why potentially what's going on. That should help you out a bunch too. Through my YouTube page too, you can also find the North American Dogman Project website, where you're going to be able to take a look at some of the more really frigged up pictures that we cannot show on YouTube involving some of the animal attacks and such. And anytime, I can help out either one of you, definitely get a hold of me. As we are tying this up, I will send you my phone number through message to you, Craig, and Paul. Definitely send me a friend's request too, and I'll give you my number as well. Easiest way to get a hold of me is just definitely fire a text, and we'll always definitely help you out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sweet. Well, to the audience, we do need to allow Paul and Craig to get back to things that must be attended to. No worries, though. Hopefully at some point when they get some more time, we will get them back over here, because they are always welcomed to sit around the fire as we do figure out what is occurring. The link to their page is going to be up in the description of the video. Go over to their Facebook, check out what's going on, and if they can help you in any way, send them a good old message. Until next time, this is going to be the conclusion of the meeting of the Midnight Society for the early hours of the morning. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, guys.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
It was great.
Ooh, my creatures, I do adore every single one of you. You are legends. If you did make it this far tonight, please like, comment, subscribe, share the facts, and feed the algorithm. We will catch you very soon.